Today I have a pretty important message, and it's going to show how everything I've been preaching on silver and gold and the captives being set free out of Exodus is also related to my word for the year 2020, which was the rise of the matriarchs. We're going to start in Exodus 30. I'm just going to summarize real quick. Exodus 29 was the consecration of Aaron and his sons, the priests. But we're going to skip straight to Exodus 30. And I want you to take note that it was a census year. In Exodus 30, verse 11, the Lord specifically talks to Moses about the census of the people of Israel. Right now, it's a census year. A census of the people, there was an appointed time to count everyone. And so in Exodus here, there was the census of the people, and we are currently in a census year to count the people. Right after that, when it talks about the census, the Lord starts to tell Moses about making a basin of bronze. So immediately after the census of the people, the Lord instructs Moses to make a basin of bronze for Aaron and his sons to wash their hands and feet. It's important to know that in the Old Testament, it refers to it several times, but the basin that was in the tabernacle or in the temple, either one, was for sanctification and purification. The priests were required to wash their hands and feet before they entered the tabernacle or the holy place. They couldn't come before God dirty, which means they had to cleanse themselves from sins. They had to become holy in order to enter into God's presence. If we look at Exodus 38, verse 8, it says, "He made the basin of bronze and its stand of bronze from the mirrors of the ministering women who ministered in the entrance of the tent of the meeting." This is extremely important. I said this year was the year of the rise of the matriarchs. That's the word that the Lord gave me. This is extremely important. We'll come back to it. Now in Mark 7 and in Matthew 15, the scribes, trying to catch up Jesus again, they question him on why his disciples are not washing their hands. Why aren't they holding the ritual of the priests? If Jesus was ordaining them as priests, then they didn't understand why it was lawful for Jesus not to make them practice that tradition, that ritual of hand washing. The reason that the scribes were so upset with Jesus and wanting to understand why he was not making the disciples wash their hands, as was their tradition, is because Jesus was with sinners. He spent his time teaching sinners. The scribes did not see them as clean or holy and didn't think that they had place there. The scribes wanted them to follow the traditional rituals of the day. But Jesus was being led by the Spirit, not by tradition. Now I want to flip over to John 13. It says, "Now before the feast of Passover." If you're unfamiliar with Passover, that was during the last plague that the Lord sent on Pharaoh and Egypt before the captives were set free. So the Lord instructed Moses to kill a lamb and put blood over the door of all of the Hebrews so that nothing would harm them. No plague, nothing would harm them. That's important to this time right now. So again, it says, "Now before the feast of Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart out of this world to the Father, having loved his own who were in the world, he loved them to the end. During the supper, when the devil had already put it into the heart of Judas to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, that he had come from God and was going back to God, rose from the supper. He laid aside his outer garments." When it says he laid aside his outer garments, that means he took off the priestly garments. If you go to a modern day church, and not a traditional one, you may not know that priests wear certain garments. And depending on what denomination you're in, they may look different. But biblically, priests have certain garments that set them apart as a priest. And he took these garments off. When he did this, this symbolized him taking off the label as a priest and becoming a servant. He laid aside his outer garments, and taking a towel, tied it around his waist. Then he poured water into a basin. This word is the same word that I talked about earlier from Exodus 30, the bronze basin that the Lord told Moses to make. Exact same word. He poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, do you wash my feet?" Jesus answered him, "What I am doing you do not understand now, but afterward you will understand." Peter said to him, "You shall never wash my feet." Now he said this because he didn't think he was worthy. He didn't think Jesus should be humbling himself to that level, to be beneath Peter. He didn't think that was appropriate. Jesus answered, "If I do not wash you, you have no share with me." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head." Jesus said to him, "The one who has bathed does not need to wash except for his feet, but is completely clean, and you are clean, but not every one of you." For he knew who was to betray him, and that's why he said, "Not all of you are clean." When he had washed their feet and put on his outer garments and resumed his place, he said to them, "Do you understand what I have done to you?" He put his priestly garments back on afterwards. Guys, there's this really big thing going on right now about everybody needs to wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. And I'm going to tell you prophetically, the enemy is saying you're unclean. The enemy likes tradition. The enemy will always place tradition over love, over anything Jesus said. So, as the enemy is calling you unclean and telling you need to wash your hands, I'm telling you, say to Jesus, Lord, not only wash my hands, but my feet also. Now I want to flop back to Exodus 38, Scripture 8. Remember earlier when I said that this basin of bronze and its stand of bronze was made from the mirrors of ministering women who ministered in the entrance of the tent of the meeting. I said this year was the rise of the matriarchs. That's the word the Lord gave me for the year. Right now, there are ministering women who are giving an offering, making a basin available for hands and feet to be washed, to make the priest clean, to come before the presence of God. So this week, while you're at home with your families, I'm going to highly encourage for you and your families to wash your feet. Even more so, I would encourage the women of the household to wash your family's feet. Wash their feet as a prophetic act. Do it literally and scripturally. Teach them. Begin pouring out of your spirit what the Lord has been pouring into you all year long. I just want to add one more important scripture reference. Actually, two. Two more important scripture references. That one in Matthew 7, where it says that the Pharisees and the Jews do not eat unless they wash their hands properly. And that holds to the tradition of the elders. It says they do not eat unless they wash first. I'm going to tell you that the enemy, the one that keeps saying, wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. We're hearing it in the physical realm. I'm telling you, look at the spiritual realm. In the spirit, we're hearing tons of voices saying, wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. I'm telling you that the enemy knows it's time for the supper of the Lamb. It's time for the wedding feast. In Revelation 21, it says, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, 'Behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain any more, for the former things have passed away. So before I mentioned that this was a season of purification and sanctification in order to enter into the presence of God. What I want you to see here is, for this much commotion in the spirit, it's bigger than what you see. We're about to enter the dwelling place of God. The dwelling place of God is going to be with us. We need to be prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. We need to be ready for that wedding feast. That requires washing.